This season we've got two big regulation changes. The first one, which we've known for some time, is the engine change. We've gone from the normally aspirated 18,000 RPM V8s to a turbocharged 1.6 litre V6 with a much higher electrical content, so KERS in layman's terms, and a very strict fuel consumption. So not only have a 100 kilos maximum fuel for the race, but we also have a maximum consumption or flow rate, if you like. The old engines, for reference, were using around 160 kilos, so it's a big reduction in fuel. And that, of course, means that there'll be a lot of strategy in the race. Most of the races we anticipate will be fuel capacity limited, so we'll have to save fuel through the race, which will mean different driving styles, compromising lap time at times to save fuel, which obviously means how you then use your remaining fuel. Do you go out quick at the start, try and break away and then save fuel? Do you save fuel early in the race and try and sprint later in the race? All those sorts of things will come into play. So I think it's a big technical challenge. They're hugely complicated engines compared to the V8s to install, where the V8s were sort of a very well-known package. These engines, the engine itself is easy enough to install, but then of course you've got the turbocharger, the intercoolers, the electrical side in terms of the motor generator units, where the batteries, much bigger batteries. Bigger batteries mean bigger conditioning boxes for the batteries. It also means more cooling for those batteries, so that means more radiators on top. So roughly speaking, the radiator area on the car has doubled compared to a V8, and that of course is another challenge, how you cool the car with such a big heat rejection requirement. So it really is a big change for us. The biggest engine change, without doubt, that we've had since the turbos disappeared in the late 80s. Arguably much bigger because of all the electrical side of it. So we've got that to cope with. Obviously Renault, our partner, are the big players there in terms of the package itself. Our job is to install this in the neatest and most performant way we can. And on top of that, the second big changes really revolve around the aerodynamics. What sounds quite a small change, which is a 75 millimetres, that's roughly 3 inches reduction in the width of the wing on each side, and that was done to reduce the chances of a wing being knocked off when two cars touch in a sort of dogfight, if you like. But it has a big aerodynamic effect. Before, the front wing end plate allowed us to put the flow off the tip of the wing outside of the front wheel. Now the front end plate's right in front of the front wheel. It's in about the worst possible place. It's not inside, it's not outside. And that means that the majority of the flow now stagnates in front of the front wheel. A little bit of it finds its way outside, the rest comes inside, and in doing so makes quite a mess. The front wheel wake effectively, or the combination front wing and front wheel wake, becomes much bigger. That causes all sorts of problems downstream as you approach the side pod and the diffuser. On top of that, we have a lowered nose, which I think is supposedly be done on the grounds of safety. It's meant to reduce the chances of a car being launched if one car hits another, in the manner that, for instance, when Mark Webber went up the back of Kovalainen in Valencia a few years ago. Whether it really makes a difference or not, I think, is a much more moot point, because it's been deemed that it's safer, so that's what we've had to go for. It's a funny regulation. Basically what the regulation does is call for a maximum side view height, so it defines the top edge and side view, and then on top of that there's a area 50 millimetres behind the front of the nose, which we have to meet, and that area is quite low down, much lower than the side view. So what you end up, of course, with is almost two noses, one which is the main bulk of the nose, which is to this minimum side view height, and then almost a bulb sticking out from that to satisfy the area rule much lower down. So I think to varying degrees, I would imagine everybody's going to have these rather ugly and ungainly noses, which I think is an awful shame. The to me, aesthetics of a Formula One car is important. The car should look good, and I think not many of the owners of these noses could really love them.